Okay, I'm now reporting from Ujjain, which is the spiritual capital of India, located in central India. Ujjain, and we are standing in front of the Rajghat, a place where Lord King, who is an avatar of Vishnu, came for the final ceremony of his father's death. So this place has got a spiritual importance, also located as one of the prime temples of God Shiv. In this video I'm going to look at Kundalini and Kabbalah, and we are going to look deep into the Kundalini methodology. I'm going to talk about meditation and the importance of meditation that is a common ground for both of the faiths. Kundalini is known as the serpent energy or the dragon, and the idea is in various forms in different literatures that we have around the world. I am now going to talk about the techniques for meditation. We are going to start from ground zero, and from there we are going to move one level up. So the ground zero of meditative techniques is to making your mind calm, so that with the calm mind you can understand a lot of things. So the first step is to focus on your breath, and this is very similar in the way how Jewish Kabbalistic meditators think about meditation. So the first step is focus on breath. The next step that is again common in both of the meditative techniques, and in all the meditative techniques, whether it's Buddhism or Hinduism or Jewish Kabbalah, we have that aspect. So focusing on breath, focusing on the third eye, which is located at the center in between the two eyes. This is a place which is easy to focus on as compared to other focusing points in our body. So the first step is focusing on breath and focusing on the third eye. When you develop that intuition, later on you can move on to other complex techniques. So yes, this is the first step that you should focus on. I am now going to talk about the techniques for meditation. We are going to start from ground zero, and from there we are going to move one level up. So the ground zero of meditative techniques is to making your mind calm, so that with the calm mind you can understand a lot of things. So the first step is to focus on your breath, and this is very similar in the way how Jewish Kabbalistic meditators think about meditation. So the first step is focus on breath. The next step that is again common in both of the meditative techniques, and in all the meditative techniques, whether it's Buddhism or Hinduism or Jewish Kabbalah, we have that aspect. So focusing on breath, focusing on the third eye, which is located at the center in between the two eyes. This is a place which is easy to focus on as compared to other focusing points in our body. So the first step is focusing on breath and focusing on the third eye. When you develop that intuition, later on you can move on to other complex techniques. So yes, this is the first step that you should focus on. Before we move ahead, I am going to talk about meditation. In Hindu mythology, meditation plays a very important role. It has a role in the part of salvation. It has got a role when we look at destroying our karmic entanglements. It has a role that is related to your soul, reviving your soul. Meditation also has a role in getting yourself detached from a lot of worldly matters. So we are going to delve more into meditation, understand what are the common grounds in meditation. We are also going to look at meditation from a Hindu perspective. We are also going to look at some common grounds in Kabbalah. And this is what we are going to talk about in this part of my document. Why do we focus on breath, or what is the importance of focusing on breath? So it is believed that there is a causal effect between your breath and the way in which you think. So if you can have a control on your breathing speed, and if you can get a focus on that, maybe you can control your emotions, maybe you can control your anger, maybe you can control your desires. So breath meditation forms the first part of taking a control of yourself. Now, we believe that when we are angry or when we are in a state of extreme pleasure, materialistic pleasure, our breath moves in a particular speed, and if we can take a control of this breath, that would give us a new opening to detach yourself. So the detachment, which is the next level into meditation, the first level being focusing on breath, focusing on the third eye. The next level is detachment, and it is believed that you have to do a systematic detachment from all the emotions, but you have to keep attachment to your duties. So whatever you are performing, that's a part of your duty. It's not a part of affection to the world or getting attached to the world. So in that aspect, focusing on breath would help you control your emotions, and controlling your emotions would give you an equanimity. So that would be the second step, or the applied methodology of this breathing technique or the meditation techniques. And of course, as we have been talking, the first step is simple meditation, second step is detachment. Your third step could be powerful sound mantras that will ignite the energy, and the final step would be connecting to God or understanding various aspects of God. Let's look at a broader part here. There are many common things in both the faiths when we look at. One common thing that we find interesting is the feminine aspect of God. The other common thing is that the presence of God, or the entire structure or the framework of God residing in a human body. So we find many common things here. The first common thing is that this body is not just a body made up of skin and flesh, but this has got some divine aspect attached to it. And the second part that becomes common is that this body has got a part of God in forms of 7 chakras. So in some respect, we are looking for a common ground. The first common ground being the feminine aspect. The second common ground is the importance of meditation. The third common ground would be the presence of God in us, or the way in which God works. We are replicating that thing in ourselves. So we are a mini universe. Our structure is same as the structure in when God works. So starting from the topmost chakra, which is light, and coming all down to the materialistic incarnation of God's energy. So this form becomes common, and once we rise up from the materialistic world or the materialistic part of God, and we move up, finally on the top we have God in his form of light. So in that part we can find this as a common ground of meditative techniques. Now in the coming part we are also going to look at more similarities and more differences. Now look at a few differences that people cite on the difference between Kundalini and the Kabbalah meditation techniques. So Kundalini is believed to be a power within this human body that can be activated by certain meditative techniques. Those meditative techniques we'll look at. And the Jewish Kabbalah is more about understanding how God is emancipating, or how God is incarnating, or how God started from the unknown or the light, and then the world comes. So in Jewish Kabbalah, one aspect of looking at Jewish Kabbalah is the attribution that is devoted, or a thing that describes how God works, or how his framework works, or how God then incarnates into two parts, the masculine and the feminine, and then God has different properties. On the Hindu Kundalini, it's about how we can arise the power of God that is in us. So that is a broad difference that we have in two of the techniques. But having said that, there are many similarities which I'll be talking about, which will talk about the importance of meditation, because one thing that is common in both faiths is the room for meditation, and the room for innovation, and an open-minded approach of interpreting various things that we have. And the final focus is to make a world in which we give importance to the feminine aspect, we give importance to mantras, we give importance to a progressive kind of a world that we are looking ahead in the next century. Some of the common features between Jewish Kabbalah and Kundalini. So we have got a power center which Kundalini talks about. It's a feminine energy, and in the Jewish Kabbalah we have Shekinah, which is the feminine energy of God that is all pervading. So in Kundalini, that energy, that feminine energy of God that pervades into human body, and that is present, but it's dormant. So a spark is needed to ignite that energy that will flow through the engine. And this vocab resembles to the vocab that we have for the feminine aspect of God in Jewish Kabbalah, that talks that God is like an engine, feminine energy is like the fuel for the energy. So likewise, we have a fuel, or we have got a dormant energy residing into us, and if we can spark that energy, and methods of sparking that energy is given to us, we can connect with God, we can get deeper into meditation, we can get more peace of mind, we can get detachment to various aspects of world that are not really required to us. We can move into a new dimension. So looking back, when I looked at the Jewish Kabbalah, we also talk about planes of existence. So we have got one plane where God lives, and there are other planes or dimensions where demigods live, and the final plane where we as a human experience it. So in that respect, we can talk about Jewish Kabbalah as planes of existence. We can talk about attributes to God. We can also talk about how God comes into his final form, which then creates this universe. So in that respect, there are a lot of interesting things that comes ahead into this research. Now there is a lot of things in Jewish Kabbalah that people have talked about, and the best part of this is that the literature is developed by various rabbis and various priests. This is common to the interpretation of a Hindu faith, where we have various priests, or we call in Sanskrit rishis, that keep on developing and keep on interpreting. So there is an interpretation of Kabbalah that says that Jewish Kabbalah is a meditative technique, and there are techniques to meditation that are being encrypted in some form. In this respect, we have got secrecy as an important thing in both of the faiths. Kabbalah is something to be kept secret, something to be told to only people who want to practice it, something that only a rabbi would decide whether he wants to preach this. The same goes in Kundalini, where the mantras or the sound vibration are only told to people from their gurus, and the secrecy of that mantra, in fact, decides your success, or whether you are going to ignite that energy, whether you are going to activate those energies into you. So the first part is like the secrecy that we have in both the faiths, in the meditative technique, and the second part is the interpretation of various texts into a part where we believe that this is something related to do with meditation. So in Jewish Kabbalah, we can have the interpretation in three terms. The first is like the attributes of God. The second is like something secret, or something that we cannot understand, something related to the feminine aspect and the creation of God. And the third is the hidden meaning, which is more to do with the meditation and the secret meditative techniques. Tuning your body, tuning your breath, and tuning your thinking is what we are looking at. Now there are 3 points that I quickly want to talk about, and then we'll go deep into that. So the first part is understanding the old quantum entanglements, or the old karmic impressions that are created onto you. So in Hindu faith, we believe about reincarnation, and we believe that whatever we do gets imprinted in our soul or those body centers. So if we can burn that out, if we can remove that past impression from our body, maybe we can remove the sufferings that we are going to face if they are coming from an old impression. So in that respect, we need to understand that we need to remove this karmic impression, and we need to understand how these karmic impressions are created on our soul, on our subliminal body, on our quantum body, or on our metaphysical body. So in that respect, removing that karmic impression is quite important. The second aspect is detachment or disengagement from the world where this karmic impression would get again stuck on you, so that keeps on coming onto your soul. So the second part is detachment. The better you get detached from the world, but in the right way. Detachment does not mean that you are free from your duties. So duties or karma is something that's talked in detail by Lord Krishna in Gita. So you have to do things as your duties, but you need not get entangled into your duties such that you have an impression that creates a psychic impression on your soul. So in that respect, duty, detachment, and benefaction of the world. So whenever you are doing a meditation techniques, you should be convinced, and this comes by practice, and this comes when the energy starts flowing into you, that whatever you are doing is for the benefaction of the world. Because the energy that is into you, it's God's feminine energy. If you want to use it for your personal benefit, that would take time to ignite that energy. But when you believe that whatever you are doing is devoted to the mankind, or if it is done for the greater good, then those psychic impressions are not going to have an imprint on your soul. So for example, when Arjun is fighting the war in Mahabharata, that is not giving him any sin, because he is doing that for the betterment of the society, the betterment of humanity. So in that respect, you need to have the same frequency as the frequency of the feminine energy of God that is flowing to you, which is benefaction of the world. So in that respect, I have touched upon three things here. I have talked about equanimity. You should be equanimous. You should not have any good or bad feelings about what's happening with you. You have to accept that it's your past, but at the same time you have to accept that whatever you do is for the benefaction of the world. In that way, whatever you do does not create a karmic impression on your soul. The second part is not feeling good or bad, so you have to be calm in yourself, and these things slowly come by meditation. Now you would be amazed that although we are talking about these main points, these points come from the very basic practice which I talked about, like starting focusing on your third eye, or start focusing on various aspects. So in that respect, the final goal is detachment, doing things which you have to understand are duties and for the greater benefit. Now I don't completely agree with the idea that that non-violence is always the solution. So violence is a part of the game as explained by Krishna. But violence or anything that you do should be for the betterment of the world and not for your personal benefit or benefit of your community or benefit of your family. So in that respect, whatever you do, you have to keep a broader angle. Once you do that, once you understand how God's energy pervades this world, then no more karmic impression on your soul, and then you would be a free soul. Or that's how we are talking about something called moksha in Buddhism, or something like getting away from the cycle of life and death.